And this is why I do my very best to not take things personally in business. So it can be quite tough as a business owner because, especially if it's your business that you started and you're the founder of the company and there are no other founders and it's not heavily financed by other people, you can take everything personally because it is like your baby. And I know in our business when we started it, it was like a child. You know, you look after it, you put everything into it. You're awake late, you get up early, then you're burnt out, you feel like shit, you sit on the couch, you beat yourself up. You know, sometimes you might be hating on yourself because you think I've got so much work to do, I can't rest, I don't have time, even though you're craving a holiday or wanting a holiday or to get away, and then you soak so much time and energy into the business. But something that can happen that can cause a lot of stress is when people start to call you out on things when they've never even had an experience with a business. Now, we are in, I guess you could say, the personal development space or the business development, business growth, whatever you want to call that space. Sometimes people say it's in the psychology space, mental performance, human performance, whatever you want to call it. So when we run Facebook ads, it is quite common where I get called a scammer, a fraud, that I rip people off, that I'm non-educated. All of these sort of things come up in the comment section. Now, for any of you who run Facebook ads, you realize that this is quite common, especially on social media platforms, because most people have no fucking filter between their brain and their mouth. And sometimes the brain's switched off and their mouth is just going. And so you do get a lot of really harsh critical feedback from people that have never even experienced your business, seen you, heard about you. And I only had this a couple of weeks ago where I was training in the gym in the morning and I noticed that there was this comment on that had popped up on Instagram from one of our Instagram ads. And this person said something like, you know, another self-proclaimed fraud guru that is just there to rip people off and take your money, that delivers nothing and blah, blah, blah. And so the first reaction is that I just wanted to get on there and go tell this guy to go fuck himself and, you know, what do you know about me? Because it was like it had obviously hit a nerve and it made me feel reactive. But something that I think is really, really important is you have to detach yourself from the business and just treat other people like people. Because just because someone treats you like shit doesn't mean you've got to treat them back like shit, even though sometimes it's very tempting to do so. And I'm not saying that you need to be best friends with people that act like assholes all the time. But what I'm saying is if you can stop yourself from reacting for a second and then stop and take a step back. Like for me, I sat there and went, I wonder what this person's going through. I wonder what their past experiences are to make them have this judgment. Like, did they grow up in a shitty environment with parents who were critical of everything? Were they one of those people, and I grew up, you know, with family like this as well, where they would be critical of most things because criticism is a defense mechanism that most people have, where they would rather be critical and correct or critical and safe than be vulnerable and get taken advantage of, or realize that they don't know something, or maybe even realize that they're not where they want to be in life. And this is why most people make those judgments. And our society is full of those people. You know, you'll see it on the news where there's all of these people who watch things like A Current Affair and they'll make assessments of people and they go, all property developers are rip-off merchants, all salespeople are fucking assholes. And they make all these judgments because they watch a half an hour segment of A Current Affair that's always picking on anyone who's doing well in life in most cases. And then they support the little Aussie battler because the little Aussie battler is the only person who's watching TV at 6 p.m. at nighttime every fucking night, which is their target audience and their target demographic. Those who are normally kicking massive goals in life are normally working towards something, or they're out with family, or they're doing something else. They're not sitting at home watching television. Now, that's not everybody. I don't want to judge everybody in regards to that. But their target demographic are people who are sitting in front of the television, who are caught to the, I call it the idiot box, that are caught on the idiot box looking at dramatized situations in life and who want to get emotional about these things. But they're normally people who aren't in control of their own life in most cases. So they're just going to be critical about everything because it keeps them safe. And naturally, they've been trained by watching these TV shows that the world is dangerous. Everything is bad. Like the more you watch the news, the more stressed out you become. You know, there's always problems. It was coronavirus. Now it's a fucking war. Now it's not the war. It's the collapse of the building industry. If it's not the collapse of the building industry, it's the collapse of the financial industry. You know, it's just that they're always picking something to dramatize. And essentially they're driving the mass population to react in certain ways because most people are reactive and they don't use that beautiful prefrontal cortex that we have, or the executive center in our brain that makes us think through things in a long-term way. And this is why the rich get richer. Normally the poor get poorer. It's also the reason why people who are reactive tend to just get more reactive as they get older and more disgruntled and more angry and more frustrated because they've never learned how to get out of the more primitive state of the brain, which is their emotional responses. So what you'll find is that when you're doing any sort of advertising or anything like that as a business owner, you will have people who are going to be reactive. And they may have had an experience where one day they went to a personal development event. It might have been one one of those people who are doing, selling and spruiking shit from stage that make people feel really, really bad. And that if you don't do this, you're an idiot, you're a fool, only intelligent people do this, run to the back of the room, jump up and down, fucking high five people. And they use all these emotional triggers to get people to react and respond. Now, for some intelligent people, they go, well, that's not my thing. And then for other people, they might have jumped in, spent their last $2,000 on something, and then now all of a sudden they're standing there going, I got fucking ripped off. And so they see my Facebook ad. And because humans, our brains are built to generalize for safety. I'll give you an example. If you're a child standing and you're learning how to cross the road, mum or dad or whoever parent says, or whoever guardian says, look right, look left, look right again. And then you see this big metal box coming down the road and your parents say, well, that's a car. Be careful of that. Don't cross when the car's coming. Now, our brain generalizes that there's this big moving thing on the road, therefore we don't cross. Now, if your parents, if you were very specific about things and we were wired to be very, very precise about everything that we do and take it down to the details, you would look at that thing and go, well, that was a white Holden Commodore. Now I'm going to step out in front of this big moving box thing because it looks different than the thing that mum and dad pointed to last time. And then you get killed because you stepped out in front of a bus. So we just generalize and we go, all cars are the same. We don't cross the road when a car's coming because all cars mean we get killed. If you're out in the jungle and something moves, we go, shit, we create what's known as it might not be a false positive, but let's say that the wind blows and you're in a grassy area. It's better for your brain to go, shit, something's there, than to not see it and get caught out, okay? Because there might be a lion or there might be a jaguar or there might be something like that in the grass. So we create these things called false positives, and our brain does that for survival also. So we generalize and create false positives, which means that it's better to see something that's not there than to not see something that is there, okay? And that's really, really important. So now that you know this, it's important to realize that when people are normally judging you or your business, they're normally judging it based on generalizations and false positives, because it's better to do that and stay safe than to not do it and to be hurt or to be injured or to even die. So it's a very primitive response within the brain, and it's part of a very old, I guess you could say, part of the brain, right? Now, in most cases, when people are triggered and they're responding to things, it has nothing to do with you and it has everything to do with past experiences, learned experiences, generalizations, and false positives. So anyway, going back to my story, I hopped on the Facebook post and I said to the guy, I completely understand and I agree with you, because the majority of our industry is full of people who are just in there to make a quick buck. They've got all these special sales tactics that they've learned and they try to manipulate people, and that happens, right? It does happen quite a lot in our industry. And in fact, the majority of my young years going to personal development events were in those environments. Now, there were personal development events that I went to where those tactics were used, and I was glad, because they used them to drive people like me at the time who were very ignorant and couldn't make decisions for myself, who were stuck in life and didn't know what was best for me. And so they used manipulation tactics to get me to go down the back and to fucking put my credit card down and to sign up. Now, if they hadn't have done that, I might not be where I am today. So I'm massively thankful that they used those manipulation tools to get me there. But there were also other ones where I'd had experiences where I signed up for things and things weren't delivered. There were problems. Things didn't get followed through on. There were things where I ended up having to get refunded, all of those things. So I had those experiences also, and that pissed me off. And now these are the things that actually cause problems in my business, because I try to not use a lot of those sales tactics when I'm delivering from stage, especially in free events. But then the challenge is that I'm competing against people who use those tactics, and those tactics work. And they work because most people are indecisive and they don't know how to go, I've got a fucking problem, I'm going to reach out to someone, or I'm going to get help and I'm going to do something about it right now. What will happen is the majority of people sit on the fence and go, I'll figure it out, I'll wait for later, I'll figure this out myself, I might read a book, well, what about if all this stuff, and they have all these what ifs, and then 5 years later, they're still in the same position. They just go around in circles. It's called a volatile cycle or a vicious cycle. And so most people just live in vicious cycles their whole fucking lives. Most people don't think that they do, but they do. Most people are pretty predictable with their patterns of behavior and also their failures and their successes. And most people go around in circles where they do really, really well and they succeed for a while, and then they fuck it all up and self-sabotage, and then they come back to the same position. It's just most people aren't aware of it. So the point that I'm trying to make is that, reflecting back on my experience, I realized that this guy may have been through the same thing. So I agreed with him and I said, look, I understand, our industry is full of those types of people, and I completely understand why you think that. And I would just, appreciate it if you looked at my page, jumped on my free podcast and have a bit of a listen, and then make that assessment from there. Anyway, this person wrote back and they said, maybe you're not one of these people. Maybe you're different. And I really appreciate the way you responded. And I'm sorry that I was a bit erratic and that I had, maybe made a judgment of you that was inaccurate. And I thought, good on him, because this person was self-aware enough to realize that maybe he'd made a critical judgment that was incorrect because of his generalizations, his false positives, and maybe his past experiences. Now, you don't always get that from customers as well. You might just get people who just blast blast you. And I've had plenty of friends who have pages on Google for their businesses, and people blast them on there and just give them absolute hell and give them 1-star ratings. Not because they've ever dealt with this person, but just they hate the industry as a whole. Or someone who they've known has done business with them and now they had a bad experience for whatever reason. And now they're then shit canning the business as well, which is, I think, completely irrational, but some people do that as well. So these are some of the things that you really have to think about when you're responding to customers and you're responding to people in your business. And I think the best thing is not to be emotionally attached to your business. Your business is your business and you're you. And I would hope that all of the people out there who are listening make assessments on people based on the way that you've dealt with each other, not based on past experiences and generalizations, because that's how you know that you're running in your amygdala, which is that primitive part of the brain and not the most intelligent part of the brain, where you can be more specific and you get rid of those generalizations. You think through those false positives and you live a better life because you understand things as they are, not how you think they are. Anyway, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Michael Mojo. I'm the owner of Mojo Human Performance Institute. We focus on business, mindset, and lifestyle hacking for driven mofos. The reason why I do these episodes is that most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them. Massive shout out to everyone who has been rating and reviewing our podcast. I see the ratings going up every week and the reviews going on there. So thank you for everyone who's been doing that on Spotify and giving it a 5-star rating. Also for those on the podcast app on Apple as well, who have been writing reviews and also giving a 5-star rating as well. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, driven mofos, have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you back on here on the next episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur.